patience. My name is David Morgan. I am a Senior Program Coordinator with Banyan Global. This is Mr. Louis Alexander. He is our Principal Associate for our youth practice. Janet Stallard is our Vice President for Banyan Global. She's going to give a introduction about Banyan Global, and then Louis and I will take you through the presentation.
Thanks, David. So, hi, I'm just going to say a few words. I just want to welcome you here today, and thank you so much for coming. Banyan Global is a women-owned small business, and we're very pleased to be a small business on the YouthPower implementation side. We do have an active project in Honduras right now, through YouthPower, that David and Louis are going to speak about. But I just want to say that we think that the work that YouthPower Learning is doing is have 30 different IDIQs that we hold that are, this is the only one that really focuses on bringing the implementers together to really learn and share. And we have so many projects. We have great successes. We have failures. We need to learn from that, and we need to do a better job. And this is a great vehicle to do this. This community of practice on engagement is very important. And so very happy to have you all here, and thank you so much for listening to a great presentation. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. In June of last year, Banyan Global was tasked with implementing what's called the Honduras Workforce Development activity, which has come to be known as Empleandos Futuros, or the Employing Futures Project. We're hoping that by the end of this presentation, you not only become familiar with our project, but that you guys yourself become more motivated to be implementing your own youth projects wherever they are in the world, and that you are excited to be joining us in employing the next generation of youth. Take it away, Louis.
Thank you, David and Janet. It's great to have all of you here. We have a presentation, and I hope it raises some issues and questions for you. And so we're going to start out. The first slide really talks about this community of practice, focuses on another slide. I wanted to start out with the youth engagement theme because it is why we're here. And but I just very briefly, I'm going to share with you what are some of the things that we've done from the very beginning to engage youth in the program.
On this one.
Can you do my memory, Louis?
Are they here?
Yes.
It's good for you to be near the speaker, too, Louis.
Up here? Oh, okay. So some of the things that we've done from the very beginning, is that okay if I stand here because I got to read that?
Yep. Everyone online can hear?
All the way in Sudan? Okay. So some of the very basic things that we've done from the very beginning is that, for instance, we just had 3 major launch events for the program. And I would say that about 75% of all of the activities were just designed and run by youth. The master ceremony was used. There were panelists on a panel with USAID, with the private sector. 2 youth were there. I was the moderator. And we had a series of skits that demonstrated some of the employment areas that youth would move into, and it was all designed by youth, and they ran with it. It was just amazing. We also have a communication specialist on the project. She's 23 years old and truly, amazing. I think that about 75% of our staff are under the age of 30 in the project. We have 27 staff right now. The name of the project, Empleandos Futuros, was generated through a series of sessions with youth. So it came out of talks with them. We have a number of tools that we're using for both technical skills and soft skills, and actually a whole process that I'm going to be telling you about in a little while. And that was, in large measure, influenced by youth. We're hiring 2 interns into the program. We have a mentorship program, and we're going to be training mentors, youth to be mentors. And then the local organizations that we're working with to recruit at-risk youth, because this is a project that focuses on at-risk youth, they have an ongoing volunteer program, an internship program with youth. So in every way, youth are involved in the program. So, okay. So I wanted to start out with the big picture of the program is funded by the Central American Regional Security Initiative. It's sort of a project that is looking for its identity because it's a youth program, it's a workforce development program, but it's also motivated by a desire to create a sense of some stability, security, reduction of violence, drug trafficking, reduction, and migration. So development and youth is sort of, it's a means to an end, but it's an end in itself. And what's interesting about the program is that there is an impact evaluation that's being executed alongside this project, and we are one of 4 projects that are going to be involved in this impact evaluation that is being led by Dexis. And they're trying to determine if a workforce development program such as this one actually has an effect on the other things that I just mentioned in terms of security, drug trafficking, violence, the proliferation of gangs, and migration. So, so you see these arenas are sort of working with one another. We're focusing on empowering youth. We have a series of strategies for workforce development. Some are very traditional, some are not. You'll hear why they're not. And then obviously leading up to job security. So unlike many youth programs, there's a lot of training in youth programs. This one is really about getting them into jobs. And I thought it was interesting for the Sudan group talking about what is employment. Honduras has a 6% unemployment rate, which is like, not bad at all, but the underemployment rate is over 60%. So Honduras, like many countries around the world, is actually experiencing this bubble of youth that are not finding themselves. They can't find, what should I study, what should I work in, who cares about me, and there are places around the world where it's much, much worse than in the United States, where you can't find a place for themselves. So we've been dealing with that, trying to define what is actually employment. And for the Honduran government, if you work 3 hours a day, that is employment. And so we've been sort of testing that idea and seeing if could we modify it a little bit and see if we can, sort of push the envelope and go beyond that. So you'll hear a little bit more about how bad the situation is in terms of, why is CARSI focusing on this particular region of the world, and I won't steal your thunder on the Northern Triangle, as this area is called. So go, sure.
The Empleandos Futuros project is being implemented in 5 municipalities. And the reason why these municipalities were chosen is because they've been designated as what's called hotspots. These areas have higher levels of crime and higher levels of illegal activity that goes on in these parts. Now, using the wonders of Google Earth, I will take you through our 5 municipalities.
We wish.
I think I'm cursed or something today with IT.
Never works.
Okay. So this is the Central American region that Louis was just speaking about. Now, you'll notice that Honduras borders Guatemala and El Salvador. Along with Guatemala and El Salvador, Honduras makes up what's called the Northern Triangle. What was originally deemed as a trade term in 1992 has come to describe one of the most violent regions in the world. Now, if we zoom in on Honduras, we'll go to Tegucigalpa. Tegucigalpa is first of our 5 municipalities. Now, Tegucigalpa, with a population of 1.19 million, is considered the political, administrative, and educational center of Honduras. It houses the government, it has most public agencies, and it has 12 universities. If we zoom in even further in Tegucigalpa, on the northwestern section, we see that there's a high number of what's called colonias in this part of the city. Now, this area of the city has a higher population density and also has higher crime activity. Would you like to mention the crime rates?
Yeah, something that stands out is, I was just reading the other day, by the way, that El Salvador just surpassed Honduras in terms of homicide rate. So back in 2014, Honduras had 86 homicides per 100,000 people. Anybody want to guess how much it's in the United States? Homicides per 100,000 people, that's how they measure it. We're 4. They have 14 murders a day. We have 33 nationwide. If we had the same rate as they did, we would have 400 homicides a day. Imagine that. That puts it into perspective. Since 2014, things have improved a little bit, and El Salvador now is in a worse situation, and a lot of it has to do with some of the measures taken by the President Hernandez, who is running for office again, and he's been getting a lot of support from the United States and other countries because he is taking some measures that have been effective in the security space.
Great. Now we zoom out and we head north to our second municipality, the city of San Pedro Sula. Now, San Pedro Sula is the second largest city in Honduras. It's considered the primary industrial center and is a very large business hub in Honduras. At the very same time, it's considered one of the most violent cities in the world. Recently, San Pedro Sula had the highest homicide rate for 3 years in a row. So working in this sort of environment can be pretty intense at times. Right northeast of San Pedro Sula is the city of Choloma. The city of Choloma has a population of about 243,000, and it actually has a high number of maquilas, or factories, due to the cheap labor. Next, we head northeast to the small city of Sula. Sula is a very small city of about 100,000, and it's actually considered a popular beach destination, which ties into Plan 2020 for Honduras. Under this plan, the government wants to create 200,000 jobs in the tourism sector by 2020. So Taylor plays into that. Last but not least, we head to our fifth municipality of La Ceiba. Now, La Ceiba, with a population of 204,000, is a Caribbean port city in North Honduras, and it's actually considered the ecotourism and entertainment capital of Honduras. And when we zoom out, you can see our 5 municipalities that we'll be working in: Tegucigalpa, San Pedro Sula, Choloma to the northeast, Sula, and La Ceiba. By the end of this 5-year project, our goal is to be working in 109 communities between these 5 municipalities.
So if the right slide comes up next. This project has, you're going to see some of the targets for the project. They're not, they're important targets in the sense of the target population, but they're not astronomical numbers. We have to train 75 over 5 years, and with a fair amount of resources and staff in 5 locations. We have to train 7,500 youth, get about 37, half of those employed. We also have another result, which is strengthening the National Agency for Technical Vocational Training, which is the one that not only provides most of the training or instructors to other organizations that are doing the training, but also certifies you. So whether you're going to become a plumber, or any trade, you get a certification, and people respect that. And the last result is really focusing on tertiary services, which means in the youth space, and in particular in the at-risk youth area, we're focusing on youth that are considered may need primary services, secondary services, and tertiary services. In general, they must be at risk, which means that they've dropped out of school, they're not employed or super underemployed, and run the risk of getting into trouble. So tertiary services is for youth that need even more support, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So this chart, and I wish it were larger, shows some of the, that's too bad, because I didn't think this would be here. So this just shows a series of the process of training and helping youth move through this process all the way into job insertion. So from the very start, we're working with very locally based organizations that can do one of the most important things in a youth program is recruiting the right youth, and then categorizing them into primary, secondary, and tertiary. So the reason why the numbers for training and job insertion are not so great is because they are important and significant and challenging for a group like this, but USAID really wants us to learn along the way and see what's working and what's not working. And so the strategy of actually recruiting the right youth from those locations, the hotspots that David was talking about, is essential. Moving on to that, then we have training in life skills. And we have the pop-up. There it is. Human skills acquired by a teaching or direct experience used to handle problems commonly encountered in daily human life. Okay. You know, we've been hearing soft skills and how important they are. So there's a lot of that in there. Cognitive behavioral therapy, another set of trainings that are, all of these phases are being sub-granted or subcontracted to local organizations. So CBT, short-term goal-oriented psychotherapy treatment that takes hands-on practical approach to problem solving to change patterns of thinking or behavior that are behind people's difficulties and change the way they feel. They feel and their attitude towards things. Then we've got work readiness training, which is the work-ready individual possesses the foundational skills needed to be minimally qualified for a specific occupation as determined through a job analysis or occupational profile. All of these will have manuals and a process that they go through with organizations that have experience doing this. There's been a lot of experience in some of this area, but this project is bringing all of these pieces together all the way to job insertion. So it's not just the training or preparing people, but actually working at the later stages with the business community to get them into jobs. Then we've got the actual professional or technical vocational training that again is going to happen through private service providers or the government agencies that are able to do that. And then we have a 3-day capstone program, which is, you know, a capstone is kind of the culmination of everything that they've done, refreshing you. Has anybody been a Peace Corps volunteer? At the end of a Peace Corps service, we have something called the Close of Service Conference, COS Conference, and it prepares volunteers for, you know, coming back into the United States. And it's a lot about, you know, sort of recapping the whole experience and helping them, you know, thrive in the next stage of their life. So this is sort of what we're doing here. And then the job insertion, which is actually job placement. We have internships. We have accompaniment to youth for several months. And we haven't gotten to that point yet. I mean, we're still just in this stage right now. So wish us luck when we get to this point. So that's very, very quickly sort of the process, which I can answer questions about later. Second result, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is a massive government bureaucracy called the state apparatus. It's got almost 1,000 employees, $35 million budget. Everybody in the country contributes to the budget by 1% of your budget goes to this agency. And it's very political, it's very bureaucratic, and so we've been tasked with helping them be more market-driven, which really fits nicely with Banyan Global because that is one of the foundational sort of mantras that we were created under. And so given the political challenges and you know, not sure what level of commitment the government was going to provide to adjusting or moving this organization forward, we came up with sort of three scenarios. A rocket is obviously much more sophisticated and quicker and more expensive, obviously, than a car, and likewise a bicycle. And so the scenario selected by USAID would depend on the kind of support that we would get from the government. So if USAID said, okay, we want the rocket option, then we said, okay, then we need sort of these things from government in order to make sure that we're going to be successful. And so we're still in that negotiation space with the government. There's a transition, there's a new government coming into place, there's going to be a new director for the institute, and so forth. So one of the things that we're doing with this session is that we are doing a labor market assessment so that we can ensure that the sectors that have been identified already by Plan 2020, as David said, which is a partnership, it's a document, a strategy that's been crafted by a partnership between the government and the private sector. It's a big deal. The government is counting on it, working. 600,000 jobs have to be created over the next till 2020, and every one of those sectors has identified spaces in which people should be employed in. So we're piggybacking on that effort and hoping to help INFOP with our labor market assessment target their teacher training, instructor training, and curriculum development in response to what the labor market's looking for.
Result 3 deals with what's called tertiary services, as Leah had mentioned. Now, tertiary services deals with the most intensive level of support and intervention. It attempts to reduce the impact of a condition or a problem on an individual's ability to function in the least restrictive setting. Now, for this result, we'll be utilizing what is called a youth service eligibility tool. A youth service eligibility tool, or commonly known as YSET, is an interview protocol developed by gang researchers to measure various levels of risk for youth who have been referred for services. It essentially attempts to calculate risk to decide whether youth are eligible for these services. Now, for these youth who are eligible for these services, we'll be utilizing various methods to work with them. We'll be using psycho and social specialists, targeted treatment plans, referral and integration services, and most importantly, we'll be creating safe places for these youth to process trauma. It's a very big part of working with these youth is they've gone through very traumatic experiences, and they need to be allowed that space to be able to process those experiences that they've had. Now, when we analyze the relationship between at-risk youth, gangs, and violence, there are 3 questions we have to ask ourselves. The first question is this: why do at-risk youth join gangs? Does anybody have an answer why they think an at-risk youth would want to join a gang? Sense of belonging. Okay. What's that?
Might be the only family they have.
Might be the only family they have. Anyone else?
Well, they don't have jobs, and that provides something to do every day, a group to interact with.
Okay, very good. So instead of me answering this question for you guys, I would like us to take a look at a real-life example of why youth join gangs. We're going to be hearing from Charlie. He's a 16-year-old boy who is the leader of a gang in El Salvador. Sure. Now let's hear from two of Charlie's friends, Sochi and Travieso. Two boys, they're 17 years old, and they're in the same gang.
Sochi's mother left him to work as a cleaner in the U.S. when he was a baby.
Soy mi madre, la señora que me dio la vida, pues. Yo la quiero y la respeto. Y, o sea, pero el amor de madre al amor que tengo, le tengo a mi barrio es diferente. Yo amo más mi barrio que a mi madre, porque cuando yo la necesité a ella, ella no estuvo conmigo, y cuando yo necesité a mi barrio, el barrio estuvo conmigo.
So then the second question is this: why do youth stay in gangs? Does anybody have an answer of why youth want to stay in gangs after they've joined?
It's difficult to leave.
Yeah.
Well, it's, survival, and they've already kind of dug themselves into a situation. Yeah, it's very difficult to get out of. It's not a matter of just joining a club and then they don't want to be part of a member of a club, so it's difficult to get out.
Right. So once you're in, you're in. Very difficult to get out. Anyone else?
Losing all those needs for them. I mean, it's providing love and income and community and human needs. They're making it.
It's its own kind of safe space, and that you're on the inside. You know, it's a safe space within that group, and it's not safe outside of it if one chooses.
Not safe outside of it.
Yeah.
Good. Let's hear from Travieso about why he joined the gang.
Andan buscando traiciones, la verdad, no me la voy a acabar, porque como voy a ir unos 35 años, porque es un homicidio, ¿me entiendes? Pero vos sabés que yo, por la causa, ¿me entiendes? Como todos decimos, por la causa. Sí, esa causa. Acabarse la mierda. ¿Sabes qué va? O sea que en este país no caben dos, ¿entendés? No cabe la 18 y la mierda. O sea que si tienes que controlar una, ¿me entendés? O sea que tienes que controlar la 18 una vez. Yo sé que, o sea, yo sé que las cosas que yo hago son malas, ¿me entendés? Yo sé que para los ojos de Dios es malo. Pero para mis ojos y para los ojos de la pandilla está bien, ¿me entendés? Pero
So then the last question is this: why do some youth eventually want to leave the gangs? To find the answer to this, we're going to hear from Charlie and Travieso about why they could eventually leave the gangs.
Yo voy a cambiar porque más esta vida no se va a llevar siempre, porque es una vida fuera de la realidad. Voy a cambiar, voy a trabajar, voy a tomar mi lugar. Quiero ir al norte, quiero decir a mi mamá que me mande a traer. Yo quiero trabajar, yo tengo posibilidades de trabajar, puedo salir adelante. Yo sé que puedo, porque mi mamá me apoya.
So it seems that we found some answers to our questions. Youth join gangs because they're looking for a community. They're looking for a sense of empowerment. They're looking for family. Youth stay in gangs for la causa, or for the cause, fear of retribution or incarceration, and fear of the real world. But eventually, a lot of youth want to leave gangs because they want to be with their family. They want to have a family, and they want to work. They're also looking to make something of themselves. So if we really look at those answers, family, community, work, and making something of yourself, these are all things that all of us search for in our own lives. So these at-risk youth are no different from us. And that's why our project is here, so we can provide those opportunities for those youth to pursue those very same things that we pursue in our own lives.
Yeah, that's, I think those comments on the video are very telling, and all of you, answered. We have a sense of what human needs are and what these youth are going through. To me, it's amazing. I've worked throughout Central America, and I've worked in Mexico, and to see the number of youth that are coming out of Honduras moving north is incredible. And you go to entire villages, and there are no young men. They've all left, and some women, looking for an opportunity in the north. So the program, as David said, is really about trying to help them find their way, but in their own country, not move up north. We don't want them to come here if there are opportunities there to be had, which there should be, because there's a lot of entrepreneurship going on in Central America. They have huge potential. So these three areas, that David's put up there: social connections. How do we help them move away from the connections that are so hurtful and damaging to their lives to create other types of connections that are more constructive and connected to the larger society, especially in an environment like Honduras and some of the other countries where trust is at an all-time low. Corruption, if you talk to the people that are involved in rule of law programming, corruption is their number one enemy. So you don't know who you can trust. And you certainly can't trust the leadership in many cases. So the political and so forth, everyone's after, their own. So they've created their own sort of state, It's their own sort of environment in which they thrive. What I find very interesting is to hear the leader, the 16-year-old. That guy's a leader. Did you hear the language they used? I was selected. It's for a cause, and I have to respond. I'm a responsible person in this community. That guy could be anything he wants to be under the right conditions, right? Financial stability is one of the things that we're trying to provide through an employment program. And, of course, the emotional stability, which is the most challenging of all, because they have some emotional support within the communities they work in. So connecting them to other sources of stability, inducing environments is going to be quite challenging. And that's why a big part of the effort is youth, supporting other youth. I think that's a really important sort of message to leave with you, the importance of, yes, we're designing these programs, we're running these programs, but at some stage, what's worked for them is that they work well with one another. Let's use that as a basis for taking them to another place.
Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate that. We're moving towards out of time, but I'm just going to present you with one question that folks have written in the chat box. One question that I think maybe you haven't answered so much is, how is gender integrated into the program? So maybe you guys could talk for a minute about that quickly, and then we can
Christine's
sign off. Yeah.
Can I make her present?
She's typing now.
Christine, would you like to answer the question? We're going to make you a presenter. Christine, can you hear us?
You can connect your audio at the top of the screen by clicking the mic icon so that it turns green. It connects to your microphone.
To give you a bit of background, Christine Seizoun is one of our gender specialists who has been heavily involved with our project in parts related to gender.
Christine, were you able to make the microphone icon green? Well, I'm guessing
that
not.
doesn't work. Just a few things I'll tell you about. 60% of the youth that we need to reach need to be males, because males are the ones that are more attracted into or move into gangs. We do have a very robust gender strategy. We have a full-time gender person on the project. We've been applauded by USAID because of the area of intervention that we've included in our gender strategy, including the LGBT community in terms of diversity areas, so broadening beyond just a gender strategy, so gender and diversity writ large. And so we've had a lot of support from people on the ground, and USAID Honduras, with a very impressive gender team that have been very receptive to what we're doing and provided some extremely valuable input into the process. We'll be providing training to all of the organizations that are subgranting or subcontracting with us in terms of gender, and obviously it's going to be included as part of the subgrants that they'll be receiving. I don't know if you want to say.
Also, at the beginning of the project, we conducted a gender analysis.
Hi, David and Louie. Can you hear me now?
What is the situation of gender and gender-based violence in Honduras?
Oh, thank you very much. It cut out for a bit. And so I can quickly jump on from here, and thanks very much both for giving a great roundup of some of the gender activities. Okay for me to add on from here?
Pedro, Sula, and we actually had a gender specialist along with Christine.
Okay, sure. Just very quickly, some of the main themes that we're looking at from a gender perspective, since gender really is cross-cutting, is to ensure that it's absolutely not looked at as kind of a checkbox activity, and that our gender specialist who is embedded within the project is working across all of the technical components and activities and the concepts of masculinities, new masculinity, and how that goes into the vocational training and the work that we'll be doing with these at-risk youth, and also taking into account that sometimes this type of programming can have unintended negative consequences, such as increases of gender-based violence. So we're trying to keep in mind all of these different kind of moving parts between the dynamics between men and women and boys and girls as we are working throughout the 5 different key areas in the country.